Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this special media briefing on the ongoing visit of Honorable President to Serbia. And for that, I have the pleasure to introduce you, sitting on dais with me, Sri Sanjay Verma, Secretary West, Sri Ajay Kumar Singh, Press Secretary to the President, Sri Sanjeev Kohli, Ambassador of India to Serbia, and Sri Arun Kumar Sahu, Joint Secretary, Central Europe. Going forward, now I would like to request Secretary West to brief on the visit.
Well, thank you. Good afternoon. Namaskar. I will read out a media statement and thereafter we will be open to a few questions. I begin reading the media statement. As you know, Honorable Rashtrapati Ji is paying a state visit to Serbia. She is accompanied by Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, Honorable Minister of State for Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, and Srimati Rama Devi, Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha, and a high-level official delegation. Yesterday, Rashtrapati Ji arrived at noon from Suriname after completing her first leg of the visit. This is her first visit to Europe. This is also the first presidential visit from either side after the creation of Serbia. Earlier, the last president from India to visit Serbia in the erstwhile Yugoslavia was in the year 1972, almost 51 years ago. On arrival, Rashtrapati Ji was accorded a ceremonial welcome and a guard of honor at the airport. President paid floral tributes at the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Belgrade on arrival. Later in the afternoon, she addressed a gathering of Indian diaspora and friends of India. She underlined that both India and Serbia are ancient lands and the relationship has been defined in the context of the non-aligned movement. In recent years, both sides have shared understanding of each other's core interests. Serbia has been a valuable partner in India's Sustainable Development Program. As India emerges as a leading power, her role will enhance on issues related to climate change, counter-terrorism, connectivity, maritime security, financial inclusion, food and energy security. Rashtrapati Ji appreciated and admired the contribution of the diaspora and friends of India and underscored their positive contribution towards strengthening India-Serbia relationship. One interesting aspect of yesterday's community event was that unlike in several other places, there were probably more friends of India than the Indian community in the hall. And that is possibly because of a long-standing affinity with this part of the world. And on the other hand, the Indian community is at its incipient state here, and we believe that in the coming few years, you will find more Indian professionals here, students, entrepreneurs, etc. Coming to today's events, it was a packed day of official engagements, which started with a guard of honor at the Serbia Palace, followed by restricted level talks, delegation level talks, joint address to the media, and a business event. There was also a call on by the Speaker of the National Assembly of Serbia, Dr. Vladimir Orlic, on our Rashtrapati Ji. And a few minutes back, we have just returned after Rashtrapati Ji laid a wreath at the monument to the unknown hero atop Mount Avala. During their interactions this morning, both presidents reiterated old commitments and resolved to explore new areas of cooperation for further strengthening bilateral relations. During delegation-level talks, President Vučić was joined by the Ministers of Defense, Agriculture, Culture, Health, Mining and Energy, Construction, Transport and Infrastructure, Trade, and Tourism and Youth, which means 8 members of the cabinet were present today for the delegation-level talks. Each participating minister briefed about the potential in their respective sectors. At the outset, President Vučić expressed his condolences for the loss of lives in the tragic train accident in Odisha. During the bilateral interactions, both leaders reiterated their principled stand on the rule of law, respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of nations. President Vučić described Serbia's relationship with India as fraternal. He termed India as a time-tested, friendly country and told our president to consider Serbia as a second motherland. President Vučić identified 6 major areas of cooperation. These included defense and military tech cooperation, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, industrial cooperation, information technology, including AI, cultural cooperation, including film production and cinematography. I may add here that during the forenoon interactions, cooperation in the field of culture, particularly in cinema, films, tourism, came up repeatedly. Serbia sees the potential of attracting Indian filmmakers for shooting, post-production, and during the visit itself, there is a high-profile Indian film crew shooting in this country. That was a fact well appreciated, and discussions continued on the positive advantages of collaborating in the space of cinema because of its relationship with tourism and also building business relations as countries get familiar with each other. We were also told that Serbia offers very attractive concessions for filming in Serbia. For instance, it was mentioned that about 20 to 25% cashback facility is given by the Serbian government to film units shooting in this country. President Vučić also emphasized that it was his desire to establish direct air linkages between Belgrade and Delhi. Describing his own personal experience as a youth, he appreciated the sincerity and work ethos of Indians. On direct air connectivity, Rashtrapati Ji shared with President Vučić that India no longer had a national flag carrier, but the fact that President Vučić mentioned several concessions or subsidies which Serbia was willing to offer Indian airlines if they operated a direct flight between India and Serbia. I think that point was well taken, and Rashtrapati Ji assured President Vučić that the Indian airlines, private airlines, would be informed about these facilities and concessions that Serbia was offering to our private civil aviation sector. Recalling his visit to India in 2017 as then the Prime Minister of Serbia, President Vučić appreciated personal commitment and leadership for further strengthening India-Serbia relations. Rashtrapati also thanked the Serbian government for issuing a special postal stamp for commemorating 75 years of India's independence. Adding to the list of President Vučić, she highlighted the unprecedented change that India is going through and called for cooperation in new areas like science and technology, machinery equipment, startups, clean and renewable energy. Rashtrapati Ji also identified skilled and semi-skilled manpower from India as having the potential to filling a vital gap in human resources in Serbia. The spiritual heritage of India, as well as yoga and Ayurveda, also came up repeatedly in the conversation because these Indian contributions, both yoga and Ayurveda, are popular in Serbia and do not require an introduction. Both presidents thereafter addressed the media jointly. They addressed a business event which was attended by over 100 entrepreneurs, also participated and organized by 3 of our major chambers from India, ASSOCHAM, FICCI and CII. During the business event, both presidents agreed to set a target for bilateral trade from the present 320 million euros to €1 billion by the end of the decade. Prime Minister Ana Brnabić hosted a luncheon in honor of Rashtrapati Ji and her delegation, during which discussions revolved around potential cooperation in various sectors, including agricultural, IT, artificial intelligence, cyber security, tourism, higher education, film productions, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnology. In the afternoon, the Speaker of National Assembly, Dr. Vladimir Orlik, called on the President. Soon after this press conference, we will be heading for the banquet being hosted by President Vucic in honor of Rashtrapati Ji. I will conclude my media statement here, and we will be open for some questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Namaste, sir. I'm Kamna from ANI. My question is, what is the outcome and significance you feel of this visit,
You know, the fact that this was the first ever visit of a head of state to Serbia itself sends a very strong message that we value Serbia's friendship, and we reiterated, our desire to further strengthen it. Serbia has been, supporting us at various regional and international platforms. So we wanted to recognize, Serbia's consistent support to issues of interest to us. Then, of course, trade and investment is something which is of, key interest to us. Serbia could be, and President Vucic himself said it many times, that Serbia could be India's gateway to Europe. Serbia having the member status, Serbia has a preferential access to the EU market. They also have preferential trading arrangements with Turkey, CIS countries, Russia, and several others. And they also offer very attractive, package of incentives and subsidies for foreign businesses who want to set up base here. And the land prices, the cost of labor is about 25 to 30% cheaper than Europe. So we also see great value in encouraging our businesses to come and set up production facilities here to cater to markets, around Serbia. So, and the fact that a business delegation was assembled at a very short notice again sends that message that, the government of India is encouraging Indian businesses to come and look for opportunities. So in terms of, objectives, one was to reaffirm the long-standing partnership. When a visit at the level of head of state takes place, it sends a very strong signal of our continuing commitment to nurturing that, historic friendship which exists between our two countries. Second was to look at new areas which need fresh attention, trade and investment. Then also, in the area of defense, technology sharing, co-production. Again, Serbia has strength in niche areas. And I think we already have an increasing list of Indian companies coming here to either buy, ingredients they need for their production at home. And in turn, Serbian companies are buying defense-related material from India. So that again could be a win-win situation for companies from both sides. People contacts, cultural ties. Again, as Secretary West said, the presence of a very large number of Serbian friends of India. So her, address to them was a recognition of the contribution they have made. So, when the President of India comes and recognizes their thing, I think there can't be a greater encouragement than that. So it was cementing their existing goodwill, reiterating our, continuing commitment, and to open new, areas of cooperation for Indian businesses. So those were the kind of positive highlights and outcomes. And President Vucic at each stage has, even his address to the Serbian business, he, spoke about the huge gains that their business can make by forging partnerships with India. I think they understand India's, rise as a global economic power and, rising political power. So they also see great merit and great value in building up, a long-term partnership. So I think that visit sends a very strong signal about that. देखिए 2017 में जब राष्ट्रपति व्यूचिच इंडिया गए थे, उसके बाद अगर आप देखें पिछले 5-6 साल में बड़े सस्टेन्ड हाई लेवल कॉन्टैक्ट्स रहे हैं। हमारे एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स मिनिस्टर की यहाँ विजिट हुई, इनके फॉरेन मिनिस्टर वहाँ गए, 2 बार जा चुके हैं इनके फॉरेन मिनिस्टर। हमारे स्पीकर यहाँ आए थे IPU कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए, इनके अभी इंटीरियर मिनिस्टर गए थे, एक मल्टीलेटरल कॉन्फ्रेंस के लिए गए थे, लेकिन इंडिया गए थे। अभी एक डिफेंस डेलीगेशन एरो इंडिया के लिए गया था। तो वो सस्टेन्ड कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो रहे हैं, लेकिन राष्ट्रपति के लेवल की जो विजिट है, जैसे मैंने इनको बताया कि वो एक बड़ा स्ट्रॉन्ग सिग्नल देता है। और आई थिंक विजिट ओवर ड्यू थी, लास्ट ईयर भी विजिट प्लान हुई थी, लेकिन लास्ट मिनट पे कुछ कारण उसको विजिट को कैंसिल किया गया। तो एक हमारी कमिटमेंट थी जो इस विजिट से फुलफिल हुई है कि हमारे राष्ट्रपति यहाँ आएंगे। सर्बिया का अपना महत्व है इस रीजन में, सबसे बड़ी कंट्री है, लेकिन कोई ऐसा कॉन्फ्लिक्ट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट नहीं है कि बाकी बाल्कन के, क्रोएशिया में विजिट हो चुकी है राष्ट्रपति जी की, और बाल्कान में अपने आप ये ओपन बाल्कन पॉलिसी है जिसको ये सब सपोर्ट करें कि आपस में हम लोग इकोनॉमिक एंड पॉलिटिकल एक्सचेंजेस बढ़ाएं। और हमारी विदेश नीति हिसाब से हमारा हमेशा रहा है कि रीजनल डेवलपमेंट होनी चाहिए, रीजन में कंट्रीज को कोऑपरेट करना चाहिए, अगर कोई डिफरेंसेस हैं उसको आप नेगोशिएशन रिजॉल्व करें। तो आई थिंक राष्ट्रपति की विजिट एक सर्बिया के लिए नहीं, पूरे इस रीजन के लिए है कि इंडिया एंगेज्ड है इस रीजन में, और ये जितने भी कंट्रीज हैं ये हमारे पुराने पार्टनर्स रहे हैं, और सबके साथ रिलेशनशिप की अपनी एक अहमियत है। जैसे सेक्रेटरी वेस्ट ने अपने जो आपको ब्रीफिंग दी कि ये बार ये इश्यू आया कि कॉन्टैक्ट्स बढ़ने चाहिए, बिजनेस टू बिजनेस, पीपल टू पीपल कॉन्टैक्ट्स, इंडियन वर्कर्स कंट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं। तो उसमें राष्ट्रपति व्यूचिच ने भी, प्रधानमंत्री बर्नाबिच ने भी कहा कि कॉन्टैक्ट्स को फैसिलिटेट करने के एफिशिएंट वीजा रजीम होना चाहिए। वीजा रजीम अभी एक ट्रांजिशन में है। 2017 में राष्ट्रपति व्यूचिच ने जब ये भारत गए थे, इन्होंने ऐलान किया था कि हम वीजा फ्री कर रहे हैं, और वो सिस्टम चलता रहा, लेकिन फिर EU प्रेशर में EU ने इन पे रिस्ट्रिक्शन लगाई कि इसका दुरुपयोग हो रहा है, जो लोग वीजा फ्री, सर इंडिया नहीं जिनके कई कंट्रीज के साथ था, कि कुछ लोग आके इसको ट्रांजिट यूज कर रहे हैं। इन्होंने काफी उसको रेजिस्ट किया, बाकी कंट्रीज पे कर दिया था, इंडिया के साथ इन्होंने कंटिन्यू किया, लेकिन आई थिंक एक पर्टिकुलर स्टेज पे वो प्रेशर अनअवॉइडेबल था। अब एक नया एफिशिएंट सिस्टम लाने की जरूरत पे वो भी मानते हैं, लेकिन उसके लिए समय, अभी इन्होंने एक नया, जो हमें आज उन्होंने बताया मीटिंग में, कि वो वीजा का एक पॉलिसी लेके आ रहे हैं, और कुछ नए चीजें, जैसे बिजनेसमैन हो तो उनके लिए अगर चैम्बर्स कर रहे हैं, सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, तो उनके लिए वीजा रजीम से, तो रियलाइजेशन तो पूरी है इनके लिए, और उसको अब जब आप सिस्टम में इंप्लीमेंट करते हैं, आपको चेंजेस करने पड़ते हैं, मैन पर लानी पड़ती है, तो आई थिंक दे आर कमिटेड टू डूइंग दैट।
Different areas of, I'm Himani Rana from All India Radio, so different areas of cooperation were discussed, and one amongst them was yoga and Ayurveda. So considering that Ayurveda is already a recognized system of medicine here, so what steps do you foresee, so that what impact it will have on Ayurveda professionals back in India? Will it open up some opportunities here?
Ayurveda is a recognized system of medicine, but I think this country needs more Ayurveda practitioners. There are very few practitioners. So, in fact, the president also offered that we could assist them in setting up a university, university level education in the field of Ayurveda, so that, more people can learn about it and then practice it. So that itself would help in spreading, more knowledge about Ayurveda. And once there are more practitioners, it would open the door for the medicines to come in, the registration of Ayurvedic medicines from India. So it's a process, I think, which ideally should begin with, starting some kind of faculty, so that you at least have trained practitioners. Right now, to best of my knowledge, we only have 2 or 3 Ayurveda practitioners. So, and they are in great demand. So I think eventually, they also realize Serbia itself has an important kind of history of, alternate systems of medicine. And so I think, and with increasing pressure on the health system, they also spoke about how, they need Indian generic medicines, affordable healthcare, affordable medicines. So, and Ayurveda itself, as an order system, is all towards, making the health system more accessible in Serbia, more affordable for people. So I think it's a good beginning, and we've left some ideas with them, and they seem very keen to take those forward.
about the digital capabilities of India and the rapid growth in the IT sector. So, is there any specific outcomes we can see from this business delegation level meetings or this visit?
I think in the lunch with the Prime Minister, she in fact made an offer. The IT minister was there. She said the IT minister should go with the delegation of Serbian IT companies and go and meet the Indian counterparts and learn the practices we are adopting, not only business to business, but also in terms of digitization, government's own programs to promote digitization. In my past meetings also, I think they want India to be their topmost partner in the field of ICT. They really admire our achievements in that sector. In fact, last time when I met the president, he himself made that offer that he would send the IT minister first, followed by a visit by the Prime Minister herself, focusing entirely on IT cooperation, AI, digitalization. So I think they recognize our strengths. They want to learn from the Indian experience. And even in other areas, as the Secretary said, there was 8 ministers present. That itself showed the kind of broad spectrum cooperation, they are looking at, with India. And it was agreed that for each sector, concerned ministries, concerned ministers should meet and, take this forward. So IT would probably remain on the top of that list.
Well, the reference to the 8 ministers in the conversation, and I may add that the 8 ministers were also present in the Prime Minister's luncheon. So the conversation focused on cooperation in the defense sector, agriculture, IT, artificial intelligence, energy transition, infrastructure. So these are the main pharmaceuticals, particularly. So these are the areas in which there is more potential seen, and more exchange of delegations would be required. And during the course of conversation, we also learned that TAFE, the tractor company, which we all thought was an Indian company to begin with, was actually a Serbian or a Yugoslavian company to begin with, which took root in India, and then was invited back to buy out the original company, which the Indian company did. So these are strands from the past which reflect wonderful and glorious association in the past. A trip like this reinvents the relationship. It is all too easy to suggest that India is changing, but for foreign countries and leadership to appreciate the change, I think you need face-to-face interactions, you need visits. And we have used this occasion, this visit, as a platform to convey to our friends in Serbia how dramatically India is changing by the day, not just socio-economically, but the pace of infrastructure development, our trading profile. Not many would have realized that we are already a country with $1.6 billion of trade in goods and services, and that we want to achieve a $2 trillion trade turnover in both goods and services by the end of this decade. And several small windows have opened up in the conversations. Ambassadors mentioned IT, artificial intelligence, and it's a two-way street. We also have a lot to learn from Serbia, the cold chain, the fruit processing particularly, their expertise in berries, strawberries, mulberries, raspberries, apples. I mean, they've begun selling apples. I think that was repeatedly mentioned, that we are an important market for Serbian apples. So all these conversations, particularly in AI, IT, cyber security, cold chain for food processing, are examples where we will have exchange of delegations, defense cooperation. I think tie-ups there is extremely important. So all in all, a bouquet of opportunities open up from a visit like this. Plus, it was a long overdue visit. and we were only paying in a certain way a debt to the relationship. And after Prime Minister Vučić, then Prime Minister, visited in 2017, he referred to that visit a number of times during the conversation. It was time that we repaid the visit, and we hope this will trigger a more regular exchange of visits at the highest levels, apart from a regular flow of delegations in the areas we have mentioned in the conversation. We've suggested to the Serbian side on how self-reliant we want to be in the defense sector, and how the defense sector is open for FDIs. It's almost 100% from G to G, and company to company, I think 75%. So we've shared the numbers, the projects. We've encouraged defense delegations to come from Serbia. They have expressed interest in artillery and ammunition and gunpowder manufacturing. So these were early suggestions of where cooperation can take place.
Okay. So as I see, there is no more questions. So sir, with your permission, now I conclude this special media briefing and the visit. Thank you very much.